Hello, and welcome once again to the Skeptic Sidekick, where we look at things from a perspective of, fact, maybe fantasy, just history, that sort of thing. And we just with me, of course, is my wonderful, beautiful sister who's sitting there on the Padre Island, somewhere out there. How you doing today?
Good. I wish I was sitting in South Padre Island. But yeah, today it's only virtual that I am there. As you can see, that's why it's all weird as I move.
Hmm.
So, how have you been this week?
I've been okay, just tired a lot lately.
I know that I've definitely been feeling that way myself. Um, so I wanted to start tonight off with a story, if that's okay.
Okay, tell me a story.
Okay, this
Wait. Let me grab my cat. That way I can hold on to it and cuddle and listen to the story.
okay.
Oliver,
Um,
Oliver, come here. Okay, tell me a story.
Okay. So this story was told to me by one of our listeners, and she did give me the permission to share it. So I want to go ahead and do that. And this listener, to start out, when she was young, she met a guy and she fell in love with him. He was a great guy, very nice, very friendly, but he did have a little bit of a drinking problem.
Hmm.
So she decided, for the welfare of her and her daughter, to leave him and, go on and start a new life. Now, this guy, unfortunately, he could not get his drinking out of control. So a lot of people ended up cutting him out of his life. And he ended up passing away with nobody there.
I think I've heard this story before.
Well, I haven't told it on the show before. I've told you, but I haven't told it on the show.
I think okay, yeah.
So, anyway, so he passed away, and then this person who told me the story,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
telling a story here.
I know.
Thank you. So this guy passed away, and the person who was telling me the story, she told me about a dream where he came to her, and at this point he was in his death state, and she saw like his death and everything. And she was torn between, is this my psyche telling me that I feel guilty for his death? Is he punishing me because, I took my daughter away and we were not there for the death? So I kind of got the feeling that it was neither. I think he was just trying to get her attention, and he was still confused because of his death and everything. So that's why he came to her in that state. She said she could feel his spirit like still lingering, but it would not enter the house. It was just kind of there. And she felt very disturbed by this. And I told her that I had the feeling that he was there because he had a message for her. But because of the disturbing dream, he realized he scared her and he didn't want to scare her again. That's why he was kind of staying away. But he wanted to look over, their daughter and her. So a little bit later, she messaged me and she's like, "Thank you so much." She had another dream where she saw him as normal and basically told her pretty much what I had told her, that, that he was okay and that he was going to be watching out for her and her daughter. And then he left, and she kind of was at peace. And so I just wanted to share that story because it was, told to me and given permission to share on the show. If anybody listening has a story that you would like to share, You can email us at info@skepticpsychic.com. I also came to me today on maybe we could possibly do a segment where um, we can, since we do the show live, maybe you can call in and share your story through either Zoom or by phone. I don't know what my partner here thinks of that idea. I haven't had a chance to discuss them yet, but
That should not be brought on the air until we've discussed it.
go figure. I'm
Yes.
sorry, ADD. But it was an idea. I wanted to get what our members think as well. Let us know what you think in the group, Skeptic Psychic, and I can go
Hmm.
ahead and put a QR code back up for that. And anything you'd like to share before we get into the topic tonight?
Not really. I just kind of been tired.
I'm sorry.
I woke up at 3 o'clock yesterday morning and watched some TV and didn't go back to bed till 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, that stinks.
Yeah.
Oh, that is never fun.
No.
I've done that before.
So
Yes. So, I'm going to just click this here.
well, I also do want to say that if for all you Star Trek fans out there, on Friday, it was Friday, we had the anniversary of the first episode of Star Trek,
Oh, wow, the original?
the original,
Interesting.
September 8th, 1966.
So that would have been 2 days ago.
Yes, it said on Friday, 2 days ago.
Oh, okay. Not a problem. I'm just doing the math in my head. I apologize.
Yes.
Yes. So, shall we go ahead and click into tonight's topic?
Yes, what
Let the
is
people know
tonight's
what we're
topic?
talking about?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Serena, or or Manhattan, that sort of thing. Let's learn about the wonderful world of
No, her name
Ariel.
was Madison because they were on Madison Boulevard.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we are going to be going under the sea today to talk about the majestic or frightful creature, depending on the tales and legends, of the mermaid. Are they real? Do they exist? Have you seen one? So, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the mermaids?
Alrighty. The Mermaids. Not to be confused with the movie starring Cher and Winona Ryder back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, what comes to mind when you think about mermaids? The shining teenager mermaid breaking curfew with her flounder friend and cruising over to a boy she's never had a conversation before. Those sleek fins that a woman of ages are always squeezing themselves into those last few years. Lovely ladies with perfect hair, shell bras, and strings of pearls. What do mermaids really eat? Algae? How are they adapting to our warming oceans? And just how do those shells stay on there anyway?
Stickies.
Yeah, jellies. I mean, the little technical parts of the jellyfish are the one that stings. The top part, not so much. So, that may be.
That might be what's holding those shells on.
Right,
Right.
right. They've been part of our world culture since at least 5000 BC. Well, at least mermen anyway. A Babylonian priest named Barosus described a god by the name of Onias. Oneus. Okay, Onius. Orneus, whichever you want to call it, who held the form of a fish, but had a human head under his fish one, and under his tail the feet of a man. Therefore, Oneus was also to be able to walk on the sands of the Persian Gulf and instruct mankind of the arts.
I'm picturing somebody in one of those really cheap costumes going
Hmm.
around. They've got the head cut out and they're walking around waddling, like you would see at a school play or something like that. That's what I'm picturing this guy looks like.
Right. Uh, he was able to teach mankind on the arts, science, and writing. Historians believe that he may have been a emissary of Ea, who is at the time was the god of fresh water and of wisdom.
However, there is a different imagery of Oneus. This has been drawn or carved over the years. He is often portrayed as a typical merman with half man, half fish. Question is though, was it the top or the bottom that was the man? Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, well, it says typical, so I'm assuming it means like the top part was man. Um, and unfortunately, only fragments remain of Berosus's writings. That's a hard one, Berosus. Much of it is simply summed up in the writings of other scribes throughout the years. However, his words regarding Oneus are said to be this: At first, they, meaning the Babylonians, led a somewhat wretched existence and lived without rule after the manner of beasts. But in the first year after the flood, meaning I'm thinking the flood that's talked about in the Bible with Noah's
Noah.
Ark.
Hmm.
Well, it says after the flood, there appeared an animal endowed with human reason, and his name was Aeneas. He rose out of the Aetherian Sea at the point where it borders Babylonia. He had a whole body of a fish, but above his fish's head, he had another head, which was that of a man. A human, oh wait, I'm sorry, and human feet emerged from beneath his fish tail. His voice was human, and an image of him is preserved unto this day. He passed the day in the midst of men without taking food. He taught them how to use letters, science, and arts of all kind. He also taught them to construct cities, to create temples, and compile laws. He also explained to them the principles of the geometric knowledge. He made them distinguish the seeds of the earth and showed them how to collect fruits. In short, he instructed them in everything which could tend to soften human manner and humanize their laws. From that time, nothing material had been added by way of improvement to his instructions. And when the sun set, this being Oneus retired again into the sea because he was amphibious. So this kind of makes me think of like, I don't know, almost like what's the word? What's the word? Evolution.
Hmm.
Like, like maybe you started out as fish and then it evolved into man, and that's where they get this whole man fish combo thing coming on. I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of think that the non-man fish. We're thinking about these the first preliminaries of Neptune, or even uh,
Titan?
Titan,
Triton.
Triton.
No.
Well,
Oh, what is he had a Triton, but what was his name? The
Neptune,
king? No, it was Neptune, and then there was the Greek one. Poseidon.
Poseidon. Yes,
Yes. Sorry. Brain not working.
no problem. We're going to continue on with Oneus, who's often linked to the greater known as the Seven Sages. It's a series of seven demigods who were part man and part fish or bird or another type of animal. All were blessed with wisdom and passing this along to the world of men. It's interesting to note, however, that before the Great Flood was written in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was thought to be come from 18th century BCE, which is before uh,
Yeah.
Christian evolution, that the highest god, Eno, wanted to destroy the world by flood. I am so sorry, my uh,
Doing okay over there, bro?
yeah, just that the large boat of the life could not. So warm demand to build a large boat in order to survive. I'm gonna have to do something about this real quick.
Computer acting up?
Computer's acting up, and let's see, editing,
Do 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 do
and
do 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 do
now
do.
for the earliest place for the mermaid to take place would be in Syria, of all places, around 1000 BC, when the goddess Atargarillis dove into the lake.
Ataragatis.
Terragatus, like I said, my eyes have just gone really wonky all of a sudden. Let
Oh
me
goodness.
see
Do
what
you
I can
need to
do.
zoom in bigger?
That's what I'm gonna do. This new prescription kind of is starting to really mess with my eyesight.
Mm. Yeah, my new prescription's been messing with my brain, so starting to, I think, finally regulate. I'm still getting a little bit of a headache, but at least I can think better than I could last week.
Right, layout. Insert. All I want to do is make it bigger.
In the meantime, if you are watching, uh, be sure to, you know, chat with us in the chat. Let us know if you think vampires. Where's my brain today? Mermaids. If you think mermaids exist, what your thoughts are. And no, we're not talking about Ariel.
Nope, not even her friend Ukla.
Who is Ukla?
He was companion to Thundar.
I'm confused.
Thundar was a barbarian,
I know Thundar
and
was
they,
the barbarian. I remember Thundar.
yeah,
Thundar. Thundar. Thundar.
no.
Thundar the barbarian.
No, you're getting confused with Lionel from Thundercats.
Fine. I do know
Uh,
who Thundar is, though.
yes, you know Ukla the Ma and Princess Ariel.
Interesting.
Yes, you don't remember them.
No.
Okay, so we're gonna go down, 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 go down. All right, so what we do here is we go to. There we go. Now I can see.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my eye just went wee.
That's okay. So we talked about a target.
Most okay. Most cultures around the world believe the form of massive flood story that Christianity attributes to Noah. But in the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Raprima writings, that before the flood, the seven sages were demigods, but after Gilgamesh writing takes place, the sages were written off as being human only, losing their animalistic qualities. Now, the earliest legend of a mermaid appears to take place in Syria about 1000 BC, when the goddess Artageus dove into a lake, taking on the form of a fish. The other gods, however, refused to allow her to lose her beauty and only allowed her lower half to become a fish, forcing her to keep the top half as a woman she was. The Greeks referred to her as Dekarto, and in northern Syria she was the chief among all goddesses, being primarily a fertile goddess and a protector of the people who worshipped her. Per her writings, not only did she control the water, but held hearing healing properties in her holy waters and was thought to bless the faithful with beauty that could not be hidden. She was the connection between the moon and the tide, ruled the waves and also the emotions.
Interesting.
Yes.
Now, archaeologists have found her figure on ancient temples, statues, as well as coins. This shows how widely people actually believed in her. Her temples holding large ponds filled with fish that were worshipped. That's interesting.
Hmm.
It was said the story of her transformation was to guide followers to face their fears and their darkest natures so they could come to both love and appreciate the complex beings that we as humans are. Now, even early Britons, like the Celts, told stories of mermaids in their culture. However, there is no recorded images in their, um, I guess, no, I'm sorry, no recorded images of them until around 1078 AD.
Hmm.
This is in Durham's Castle's Norman Chapel. The Saxons of the time carved a mermaid's image, but it is considered by historians to have been included to symbolize temptations of the soul. Hmm. So,
Anticipations.
yes,
Oh no, gone again.
yeah. So this was to, warn people about how, things could come to tempt your soul and pull it away from God.
Hmm.
And so they did it, kind of like this temptress fish woman type thing. Um, However, the word mermaid is not as old as it is compared to its history, as the word is thought to have been derived from mir or mer, which means sea,
Hmm.
and maid, which, like, a maiden could be, female. So it was a mermaid. A male one was a merman. And this was first known to be mentioned in the Chaucer, cannot say that word tonight. Chaucer,
Chaucer. Chuc.
Chaucer,
Yeah.
yes, was it was a fragment of his tale, the Canterbury Tales, which is definitely very hard to read, but very worth it if you can get through its Old English. And this tale was known as the Nun's Priest's Tale. This was written back, way back in 1390 AD.
Hmm.
And as I said, if you can get through the Old English, the Canterbury Tales is a wonderful, wonderful read, but it is difficult. Mermaids, or a form of them, have been found in pretty much every seafaring society. Homer also wrote about them in the Odyssey. Asian societies believe mermaids to be the wives of powerful sea dragons, and they served as messengers between the dragon spouses and the emperor on land. The Aborigines of Australia believed the singing mermaid they called the Yok Yoks. And there's even Paleolithic cave paintings from 30,000 years ago that show magical creatures along with more recognizable creatures. So that kind of makes you think. I mean, if going all the way back 30,000 years ago, they were
Hmm.
creating these drawings, it makes you wonder, were they actually seeing these things, or were they seeing things that look like it? And so they were like, oh, well, that looks kind of like this. So I'm going to draw it as that. But if that's the case, then how is it that people who had never seen these drawings were seeing the same thing? So it kind of makes you wonder how their mind went to the exact same thing as these people 30,000 years ago when they
Right.
had no way of seeing these drawings to say, "Oh my gosh, that's this, so I'm going to go with that." 1 second.
Okay.
Continue on.
Now, regardless what each folklore comes into creation, sailors were spreading the stories of sighting these elusive, beautiful creatures back into the Middle Ages, and even now and then a new report will pop up of a mysterious creature that saved someone from drowning or guided them safely to shore. In October of 2002, three mermaids really did save a scuba diver and have been interviewed and hailed as heroines. These three were in the midst of an open water rescue drill off the California Catalina Island. Yes, even mermaids take classes, this one being an Advanced Professional Association of Diving Instruction Mermaid class. The instructor, Ella Jimenez, along with the safety diver, Great Chin Burger, honestly, we can't make this stuff up, and mermaid safety student Elena Garcia, heard cries for help and swam as swiftly as they could in their mermaid monofins. They reached the 73-year-old scuba diver, Pablo Alviera, unconscious and foaming at the mouth and not breathing. Together, the three of them stripped off his gear and gave him rescue breaths while dragging him to shore. There's a little bit more, of course. Aviata was an expert scuba diver, and even now and then trouble happens. While the gauge is running low, Aviata and two others headed to the surface. He may have held his breath on his way up, or to ascend too quickly, or to rental scuba diver faltered. But the Aviata reached the surface, began foaming at the mouth, barely managed to tell his companions Javier and Joshua Tramont that he couldn't breathe, and then lost consciousness.
So we want to make this clear. This wasn't actual mermaids who saved this poor man's life. This was women dressed up as mermaids.
Are you sure
Learn,
about that?
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Um, I'm pretty sure that these were actual women who were obsessed with mermaids. So they took a class learning how to swim with a fin and how to breathe underwater. And that's where the whole mermaid thing came from.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. Now, the cries the mermaids heard were from Avila's friend. As he grabbed him and removed his mask, he tugged him towards the shore while yelling for help. The three were around 80 yards from the beach when the mermaids arrived to aid them. This did help save Avila's life as the mermaids stripped his dive weights and excess the equipment. I'm sorry, and excess equipment, and they while they gave him the rescue breaths. This did allow his friends to keep pulling him to shore without the distraction, and they were able to do open water CPR. Thankfully, Avila did sorry words. Thankfully, Avila did recover, and he had to spend some time in a hyperbaric chamber, to get his pressures and everything back up, um, as well as the air that was in his blood. However, the divers and the mermaids all claimed it was a magical and surreal experience. Right. I'm really feeding into that one, people.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, if you look at it from a logical standpoint, you could say that mermaids have actually helped people reach the shore to safety. But are they really mermaids, people? Ask yourself that.
Yes.
Sailors over the centuries have looked at mermaids either being good luck or bad luck. And the chances of receiving aid are based on the flip of their tail. However, sailors attributed the mermaid as a representation of the force of nature that the sea truly is. If there was a sudden squall that hit, either it was the fault of the mermaids, or, maybe Poseidon was having a bad day and decided to,
Mm-hmm.
create a squall. And surviving the violent seas meant that either, Poseidon was having a good day, decided
Mm-hmm.
to let everything be chill and copacetic.
Yes.
Or it could mean that the local mermaids were, you know, done with their mischief for now. Every sailor knew that each man was judged according while traversing the vastness of the ocean. If you were dragged down into the depths, it was most likely that you were a bad fellow. You were not a very nice guy if the seas took you under, people. That, or maybe a mermaid fell too hard for you and decided to make you her groom. So they pulled you down into the sea so that you can spend all of your life with them. But they forgot you cannot breathe underwater.
Yep.
Now, if you went overboard, but you saw land and were able to get to it, or you came upon some treasure, it was said that you had the favor and the blessings of the mermaid because they liked you and they wanted to give you something wonderful. So they gave you land and treasure.
Yep. Now, as such, once figureheads became popular between the 16th and 20th centuries, it often was a mermaid that was carved into a fix to the bow. Now, it was thought that by showing you that you believed in the mermaid, that would be appeased by calming the sea, bringing good weather, and allowing a safe passage and return to shore.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Mermaids even swam decorated ancient maps. Early map maker Oleus Magnus used a variety of sea monsters, not just mermaids, on patches of the map where he dangerous weathers and shipwrecks were frequent. Here he began them be monsters was held as respect when sailing those parts of the sea. Mermaids, however, have been mostly blamed for ships running around, either on shore or hung up on submerged rocks. This is most likely as a ruin running around, and is a frequent experience. Water levels may be low or navigation may be off. There was no GPS back in those days, so a compass, sextant, and a time all you had really was to go by. These sailors, dropping weighted ropes to discern how many phantoms lay below the keel, all knew how the water levels would be if they were could change suddenly, and that sea mounts and coral reefs existed pretty much anywhere they wanted to sail.
So, does that mean that the Bermuda Triangle is a home for mermaids?
Maybe.
Maybe that's why there's so many shipwrecks there, is because the place is filled with mermaids.
Hmm.
Now, regardless, you would think that the ancient sailors would want to tattoo a mermaid or two on their bodies to show these lovely ladies that they believed in them. But mermaid tattoos aren't even at the top 10. A sailor was more likely to get an anchor than any other ink. And this makes sense since the anchor steadies you and keeps you from drifting.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, the second most popular tattoo is the swallow. A sailor would get a swallow on one side of his chest after he completed his first 5,000 nautical miles on sea. And to celebrate his 10,000th nautical milestone, he would get tattooed a swallow on the other side. Now, that kind of sounds strange to us nowadays, but sailors did believe that if you were to drown, the swallows would carry your soul up to heaven rather than you would, sink down to Davy Jones' locker. Also, I'm sorry, behind the swallows, they get dragons and golden dragons,
Hmm.
fully rigged ships, shellback turtles, nautical stars, compasses and compass roses, pigs and roosters,
Yep.
and words that hold fast tattooed on their knuckles. It is only modern times that have seen the popularity of the mermaid tattoos. And this is actually starting in the early 1300s. It was seen to bring luck to the sailor if he fell overboard. Now, my question, you were in the Navy.
Yes.
Did you ever meet anybody that had these tattoos?
I knew a couple of people that actually did have tattoos.
Were they of the ones mentioned or were they something different?
Well, with the tattoos, you'd have occasionally. I think I met three guys that actually did have mermaid tattoos, but the rest were kind of like anchors or uh, ships, that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Now, regardless what you think about ancient sailors that would want to tattoo a mermaid or two on their bodies to show off the lovely ladies of the seas that they truly believe, but mermaid tattoos aren't even at the top. Okay,
Uh, you're you're
I'm
lost
sorry.
there.
All right. Of course, these days it's believed that any sailor who claimed to have spotted mermaid was either hallucinating from dehydration and heat or had spotted a manatee out on the rock or swimming around the ship. Grown manatees are the large as humans, having been out to sea for so long stretches, a fellow could have desperately been the sight of a woman. Even a chubby manatee shaped one to have mistaken the manatee for the real thing.
Yeah, kind of like
Yeah.
um also I think dolphins, correct?
Hmm.
Dolphins have
Now,
also
even Christopher Columbus claimed to have spotted mermaids cavorting around the off coast of Dominican Republic. He was quick to point out that unlike the diversity beautiful mermaids of the fable, what he saw was not that good looking, claiming that they were not half as beautiful as they were painted. Still, for a guy who got a lot wrong about the way, who can blame him for wanting to hype up the exploits of a little three chunky chicks on the plane aside elevating themselves above the surface of the water? Okay, yeah. Almost makes you wonder if Columbus really ever met a girl, if that can't be the case, because he was married and had two sons, one with his wife, the other one with his mistress. Maybe he needed glasses or was just blind to the sunlight of the water. Of course, the first ever recorded mermaid was would ever to go on display was shown by showman Phineas Taylor Barnum. Though his isn't where this tale begins.
so going back to my theory about the Bermuda Triangle, the Dominican Republic, isn't that around the Bermuda Triangle?
Yes, it is.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And he was blinded by the light. Sorry.
Well, even though on another topic, he also did see some unidentified objects in the sky.
Hmm. Yes. I have a question about that, but I don't want to get on topic, so I'll ask you about that later. However, in 1822, an American captain from Boston by the name of Samuel Barrett Eads and his crew rescued a group of sailors. One piece of cargo they had with them, and they were sinking from a Dutch merchant ship. The cargo that was saved, this was supposedly a stuffed body, and this was a stuffed body of a dead mermaid. Now, the crew had said they purchased this from a Japanese fisherman. So I think they were taken for a ride, but Captain Eads saved this bit of cargo as it absolutely fascinated him. He was so excited, that he had had it. And stories vary as to how he got the funds to get it. He owned an eighth interest in the ship Pickering, and most tales have him selling the ship without knowing the other seven people. And he sold the ship supposedly for $6,000. Today, that's chump change.
Mm-hmm.
Some tales, however, state that the Dutch merchants demanded 5,000 in Spanish dollars. If you put that into US dollars, the purchase was about the equivalent to a cool $250,000 today's money. If various stories are correct, it means that Eads used the ship's expense account. 1 second. My husband just turned off my screen again. Let me get that back. Mercy, you turned off my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a podcast, bud.
My bad.
Sorry, people, I'm coming back.
Okay.
Technical difficulties. Mercy.
We're here.
Okay, it's back. Okay, I apologize for that, everybody. Please forgive. So it seems that, Eads did use the ship's expense account to purchase the Mermaid. He then sold the ship and all of its contents for an additional $6,000. So in today's dollars, that's about $160,000.
Mm-hmm.
Altogether, Eads did manage to walk away with the Mermaid and having essentially stolen $500,000 from the ship's true owners and accounts.
No longer captaining a ship, Eads decides that he was now an adventurer instead of a sailor and booked passage from the U.S. to London, England, where he planned to exhibit his mermaid. Naturally, customs confiscated it, calling in William Cliff to investigate the mermaid. Cliff was the assistant of Sir Edward Home, the famous anatomist of the day, as somebody who looks at the anatomy. Cliff presented himself at the East India baggage warehouse on September 21st, 1822, to inspect the mermaid. He claimed it to be a fake, of course. No one could really expect someone to have studied anatomy could fall for this spot. But Eads was positive that he had the real thing. Cliff's records included a detailed description of the mermaid, including a sketch. The head, he said, was that from a female orangutan. The teeth and jaw were from a baboon, as well as the hair. It had taxidermy fake eyes. The nails were possibly quills or horns. The creature's torso was attracted to a salmon, measured about 2 feet 10 inches length. Eads, however, somehow managed to wrangle the report submitted to customs and not to be revealed to the public. His mermaid would go on display as a genuine article upon claiming his ugly specimen from the warehouse of Dr. Ray's Price. Zoologist actually declared the specimen as a real deal. The Fiji mermaid went on display in Turf Coffee House on St. James Street, London. The owner, a Mr. Watson, not to be confused with John, uh, rented the space to Eads, and the exhibit held between 300 and 400 visitors a day, each visitor paying a shilling entrance fee, which was suiting Eads just fine, until the owner of the Pickering caught up with him.
Dun, dun, dun. Now, Stephen Ellery, who owned 7/8 of the Pickering, did want his money back. And he, didn't take a chance of Eads even making a hasty retreat back to America. Eads had brought up before the Chancery Court. I'm sorry. Eads was brought up before the Chancery Court on November 20th of 1822. Poor Eads had only the mermaid on display for less than a month and a half before she was declared a ward of the court, meaning he could not sell off with her. Eads craftily tried to advertise that Sir Everard Holmes had declared the mermaid to be genuine, which was the exact opposite of what Clift had claimed during his analysis. Now, of course, Clift was miffed about this, and he published his own long article stating how the mermaid was fake and, supported his evidence on this. Eads was then labeled as a huckster and a cheat. And to pay off his debts, he had no choice but to go back to working the seas. Naturally, he took the mermaid with him. Within 2 years, the mermaid was out of the news. Also tucked away amongst Eads' belongings.
Yes. Now, in 1841, Barnum purchased the Schroeder's Museum in New York City, renaming it as Barnum's American Museum. At the time, a man named Moses Kimball operated the Boston Museum. Fort Eads died in 1842, and his son Sam Barrett Eads Jr. inherited the Mermaid. He promptly sold it for a quick bit of cash to Kimball, though we cannot find whatever small sum the young man managed to get for it. Kimball took the mermaid with him to show to Barnum, who wanted to have it at his museum. So the two of them made a deal that, despite Barnum being unable to find anyone to authenticate it, he would lease it from Kimball for $12.50 a week, or just shy of $470,000 U.S. Today currency.
470, not
Yeah,
470,000.
470. Now the mermaid still belonged to Kimball, but Phineas had it on display. He even had one of his associates, Levi Lehman, pose as Dr. J. Griffin, saying that the Griffin had caught the mermaid down in South America. Lehman, posing as Dr. Griffin, checked into Philadelphia hotel, mermaid in tow, and showed it to the house landlords. The landlord was so thrilled he asked Dr. Griffin to show it to his editor friends. With that complicated, Griffin traveled to New York and displayed the mermaid to a small, authentic audience in local concert halls for 5 days. Burnham PT had mistakenly invited Griffin to allow the American Museum of Natural History to take a look at the mermaid, printing up 10,000 pamphlets describing transformation and mermaids and a completely made up story about the specimen himself.
Now, just remember, people, Barnum and Bailey also had a
This is
unicorn.
before Barley. This is before
Okay.
Barnum and Bailey.
Well, either way, they still had a unicorn, quote unquote, which was a poor little goat with one horn. And they paraded this thing all around saying it was a unicorn. So, how can we believe that this mermaid they had was authentic if this poor goat was just a goat? Makes you think.
Yes.
It did continue to be popular over the next year, bouncing back and forth between Barnum and Kimball's museums. Following year, she toured through the southern states, and then she returned to London on exhibit in early 1859. Barnum brought the mermaid home in June of that year and returned her to Kimball. And from there, she apparently disappeared from record. Now, I'm wondering if maybe, she being transported back and forth, maybe the thing just kind of like started getting kind of shabby, and that's why it, never really made any other.
Maybe.
Um, there are numerous recreations out there that claim to be the quote unquote real thing, but all have proved thus far to be imitations. Theories abound as to what could have happened to her. However, the most believed one is that she burned with the museum that belonged to Barnum back in 1865. However, he claimed not to have possession of her at that time. Kimball's own museum burned decades later, but he also never claimed to have lost her at the time. So, what do we have? Basically, some drawings and notes, and that's it. P.T. Barnum was forced into the circus business after a few more fires completely destroyed his museum, and this ending his dream. In 1891, P.T. Barnum did pass away from a stroke. And the Fiji mermaid, as much of a hoax as it turned out to be, does still enchant people to this day, far more than it ever did when she was on display. It inspired books, conspiracy websites, toys, mugs, and other curiosities. If you want a Fiji mermaid of your own, pick up the 3D pattern and mold one for yourself. Even video games are into having mermaids. Elder Scrolls 4
Yep.
has a mermaid hidden as a feature you can find. I'll have to go back and look at that because, well,
Hmm.
I love the Elder Scroll games. So I
Right.
will have to go back and look for that mermaid. Um, Even if you're into old fashioned board games and not video games, there's a game called Horrorclix where you can find mermaids in it. You also have Harry Potter, that I think it was Goblet of Fire where they had the mermaids under the water.
Right. Do you want a better, kinder, gentler mermaid fare? There's always Hans Christian Andersen and his fairy tale, in which should not be confused with the Disney adaptation. In the original story, our mermaid fails to win the prince's heart and is left to either murder him or allow herself to die. Not so family friendly there. You can always crochet your very own mermaid and place her on display stand. There are living dead mermaids, plastic horrors to haunt your child's dreams and nightmares, and even Barbie had her own turn flipping some fins.
Hmm. I remember that came out in the 90s.
Right. Maybe you should just leave mermaids to girls at the pool, mommy's glamour photo shoots on the beach, and then the room Walt Disney. It sounds much more safer that way. Hello. It
You,
does kind of conclude our topic on mermaids. So we asked you and the viewers, what do you think? Do we have something swimming under the sea? Is there a tale to be told that's been passed us through time? Did the Atlanteans actually go down into the water and create the hidden city of Atlantis? Did they become mermaids? I mean, they were experimentations with animals and humans mixed together, so that is one of the questions. So, next week,
hold
your
on.
thoughts.
Yes, let us know in the comments below your thoughts and if you think mermaids are real or if you think it's just an illusion. What do you think, Ro? Do you believe in mermaids? Do you think they exist, or you think it's just things that people have seen after being at sea for too long?
I think that at one time there may have been mermaids, but I think they've gone extinct.
Do you think they were half human, half fish, or do you think they were just some kind of strange creature?
Uh, there are so many tall tales and legends throughout the world. I would think that there would be a uh, half person, half uh, aquatic creature.
Interesting. I know I have pretty much been interested in um, mermaids since I was a child. I remember my friend and I wanting to become mermaids and trying to figure out a way to do that.
Yes, I do know a lady up in Seattle that occasionally will go to local conventions and have kids get their picture taken with a real mermaid.
Interesting.
So
So I have Found a
And
couple of
there's also fact back during the late '60s, early '70s, Aquarina Springs out there in the San Marcos, Texas, would actually have mermaid and mermen frolic in the pool. Uh,
yes, they have those in quite a few places in
hmm
Florida as well. Um, but I have found a few articles about mermaids that I will share in our Facebook group, Skeptic Psychic. So if you want to check those articles out, become a member and join our group. And don't forget to tune in next week because we will be continuing our conversation about mythical creatures of the sea, where we will be talking about Leviathan and if we believe that those actually exist. So that will be another interesting one.
Yes.
So make sure you mark your calendars for next Sunday, September 17th, and set your timer for 8:30 Central Time. That's PM. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Also, if you like what you're hearing, please like and subscribe and check and comment all the fun
We do
stuff.
we do like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars.
Yes, we do like 5 stars, but we'll take whatever you give us. You can vote for us on Apple Podcasts or wherever podcasts can be found. And we wish everybody a wonderful week. Stay safe and stay healthy. And take care. Sweet dreams.
And unpleasant nightmares.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye bye. Okay, so
Hold on. We are not, we are still live. I'm trying to find the thing to close it out.
okay, hello everybody. It's just wonderful. Yes,
Yes, we are still here. Here we
yes.
go.
Talk about
Okay. Good night, everybody.
good night.